Hey guys, welcome back to the channel and to another reaction video. Today we're going to be watching, reviewing, and reacting to the Season 1 finale of House of the Dragon. Okay, so I'm a little nervous going into this. Based on my knowledge of the source material, I'm very curious about how certain things are going to be represented this episode and what exactly they're going to do here. I have an idea of where I think they're going to end the season, but, you know, I could be wrong. So it's a guess, and I'll let you know at the end if I was guessing correctly or not. Really curious to see what everyone's opinions are going to be after the conclusion of the first season. Oh boy. And it's going to be really interesting because, of course, the last episode was entirely focused on the Greens, so to speak, with the exception of Rhaenys. It was all very King's Landing focused and very specifically revolving around the Green Council and the plot to put Aegon on the throne. So we didn't even see Rhaenyra or Daemon. And they, as far as we know, don't even know that Viserys is dead yet. So yeah, I feel like this has the potential to be another emotional episode, but we'll see. We'll see what's going to happen. I'm really excited for this. I hope you guys are excited as well. Just quick before I get into it, I do have a Patreon if you're interested in watching full-length reactions to my House of the Dragon series. You can watch those on Patreon, as well as Patreon exclusive shows like Rings of Power and She-Hulk, The Expanse Season 6, a bunch of movies. I also have early access to certain things, so if you want to help out the channel in any way, please do check it out. Otherwise, I just appreciate you being here, and let's get into the episode, the season finale. Here we go. Thinking about what went down in, presumably what went down in episode 8, since that was just very recent for them.
Grandsire was the greatest sailor who ever lived. I get green sick before the ship even leaves the harbor. I'll just ruin everything. I don't want Driftmark. It should have passed on to Sir Vaymond.
We don't choose our destiny, it chooses us.
Grandsire, let you choose whether you be his heir. You told us so.
Sweet boy.
Not so... perfect.
She's like, if you only knew. Perfect.
Good morrow, Sir Laurent.
Princess Rhaenys has just arrived on Dragonback.
Oh boy.
She urgently requests an audience with you
Here
and
we
Prince
go.
Daemon.
Oh! They think it's about Corlys. Oh no. Oh no. They all think it's about Corlys.
Of Lord Corlys'
God.
recovery.
Viserys is dead.
Oh.
I grieve this loss with you, Rhaenyra. My cousin, your father, possessed a kind heart.
Oh god.
Aegon has been crowned as his successor.
How did Viserys die?
I could not say.
How long ago?
A day passed, perhaps two. I was made a prisoner in my quarters while the Queen made her preparations.
Viserys has been slain.
Oh god, Daemon.
Alicent demanded you declare for Aegon. For the masses.
So that the masses would see him as their rightful king.
That whore of a queen
Oh, God.
murdered my brother and stole his throne, and you could have burnt more for it.
A war is like to be fought over this treachery, to be sure.
It's like, yes.
But that war is not mine to begin. I only rushed this warning to you out of loyalty to my husband and to my house.
Oh god. Yep.
Baby's coming.
Way too soon. The fact that Daemon was like,
far from complete. This should not
now believes that Viserys was murdered, and they did set that up in episode 8 with him like
head
sniffing the
about you,
cup, like
princess.
because he couldn't come to terms with him getting sick,
5 times before.
so sick.
It's completely different.
Oh, get off! Get off!
Oh god.
Ow! Ow! Ow!
On him, so he can learn what you're
Yeah.
Your lady mother needs to see you. Both of you.
That's good, Rhaenys.
Oh, fuck. Mark! Your grandsire, King Viserys, has passed.
Viserys?
The Greens have repudiated the succession and claimed the Iron Throne. Aegon has been crowned king.
What is to be done about it?
Nothing yet.
And where is Daemon?
I
Yeah.
don't know. Gone to madness.
Yeah.
Gone to plot his war.
Yeah. 'Cause he thinks his brother was murdered, and he already hated Otto.
Viserys! Naught is to be done but by my command.
It's a pretty tall challenge he's taking on for himself right now. He's got to go stand up to Daemon on her behalf because she can't. God.
A raven flew in this.
I'll
Daemon!
fly to the Riverlands myself and affirm Lord Tully's support.
You will do no such thing. My mother has decreed no action be taken while she's abed.
It's good you're here, young prince.
Oh God.
You're needed to patrol the skies on Virmax.
Did you hear what I said?
Daemon does not like to be told what
The
to
ravens
do.
will button us.
But he's got to.
I shall
Got
see it
to.
done.
Summons the
Got
step.
to listen.
Our Kingsguard are needed.
Oh, I knew it was gonna be this. I knew. Shades of Daenerys.
Swear anew
Oh,
your oath to
Caraxes.
Rhaenyra as your queen. To Prince Viserys as the heir to the Iron Throne.
Oh.
Or, if you support the usurper, speak it now. And you will have a clean and honorable death.
Oh, jeez.
But if you choose
Cyrax is
treachery-
feeling what she's feeling.
If you swear fealty now, only to later turn your cloaks, know that you will die. Screaming.
Oh, they're making these scenes, these birth scenes so graphic this season. Oh God. Wasn't far enough along to survive anyway, but also deformities. See the scales. God. She's doing this herself. She doesn't want the Silent Sisters to do it. Viserys' crown.
I swear to ward the Queen with all my strength and give my blood for hers. I shall take no wife, hold no lands, father no children.
Oh.
I shall guard her secrets, obey her commands, ride at her side and defend her name and honor.
And then they have Daemon put that crown on her head just like he just put it back on Viserys' head. And her face. She's just a well of despair right now. Just everything. Rhaenys is like, okay. She's bringing the girls to the war council with her. Just like with me as queen, it's not just going to be a bunch of men around my table.
That we will support him should it come to war.
I'm going to treat with him myself.
What of Storm's End and Winterfell?
There has never lived a Stark who forgot an oath, and with
Yeah.
the North will follow.
Lord Boris.
There's never lived a Stark that forgot an oath. Yeah, Baratheon though.
Old Valyria. Dragons.
Yes, but
The Greens have
yeah,
dragons.
They have three
and what?
adults, by
Okay,
my
but
count. We have
one is
Cyrax,
Vhagar.
Araxes, and Melis.
Your sons have Virmax.
She's like, you have melees? Excuse me?
Then none of
Excuse?
our dragons have been to war.
There are also unclaimed
Yeah,
dragons.
unlike Vhagar.
Seasmoke still resides on Driftmark. Vermithor and Silverwing dwell on the Dragon Mound.
Now, Vermithor
Still
and
riders.
Silverwing.
Then there are the 3 wild dragons, all of whom nest here.
And who is to ride them?
Dragonstone
Stay away
has
from the
13
cannibal.
to their 4. I also have a score of eggs incubating in the Dragon Mound. No.
We need a place to gather, a toehold, large enough to house a sizable host.
Here, at Harrenhal, we cut off the west, surround King's Landing with the dragons, and we could have every greenhead mounted on spikes before the fucking moon turns.
Your Grace, a ship has been sighted offshore.
But all the people
long
that would
galleon
potentially have to be killed is the issue. Well, it's like, well, here we are again, all these years later.
I come.
She looks badass up there, I'm not gonna lie. Otto definitely sees that crown.
Acknowledge Aegon as king and swear obeisance before the Iron Throne. In exchange, his grace will confirm your possession of Dragonstone. It will pass to your true-born son, Jacaerys, upon your death. Jacaerys will be confirmed as the legitimate heir to Driftmark and all the lands and holdings of House Velaryon. Your sons, by Prince Daemon, will also be given places of bearer. Finally, the king in his good grace will pardon any knight or lord who conspired against his ascent.
I would rather feed my sons to
God.
the dragons than have them carry shields and cups. For your drunken usurper cunt of a king.
Oh,
Aegon Targaryen sits the...
Daemon. Looks like sad about this. From the book that they read together when they were
Alicent
kids.
has not forgotten the love you once had for each other. No blood need be spilled. The realm can carry on in peace. Queen Alicent eagerly awaits your answer.
She can have her answer now, stuffed in her father's mouth along with his withered cock. Let's end this mummer's
David!
farm. Sir Eric, bring me Lord Hightower so I may take the pleasure myself.
Daemon. Oh god.
No. The coming war against
Daemon's
the
not
darkness
happy.
is the Conqueror's dream. Viserys shared it with me when he named me heir.
Really, Daemon? You're that, like, upset that you didn't know what she's talking about. He's that hurt about it. He's taking it out on her. Yeah. He never wanted him to be heir.
Did he?
And this is why, Daemon, you're so caught up in your emotions, you are not thinking rationally, you're harming your wife. And you know, I get it. He hates Otto. He thinks that they killed his brother and stole the throne. But part of the reason he thinks this is because of his own, again, emotional inability to accept how sick his brother was and that... Oh, Corlys.
We will retire to high tide to be content with our grandchildren.
Jace, Luke, and Joff are claimants to
Yeah.
the throne. Those boys will not be safe so long as Aegon is king.
Rhaenyra was complicit in our son's death. That girl destroys everything she touches.
That girl.
See, I told you she was watching her.
holding
She
the
was
realm
liking
together
what she
at
was
present.
hearing.
Every man standing round the painted table urges her to plunge the realm into war. Rhaenyra is the only one who's demonstrated restraint.
And she's got to think about her grandchildren.
Easy words for a lord who commands from the safety of his castle.
Doesn't make it the Lord of the Tides.
Whoop.
Corlys
They're all
Velaryon.
like, whoa.
And
He's
his
up.
wife, the Princess Ra
Our houses are bound by common blood and common cause. This high tower treason cannot stand.
She's like gigantic moment for her right there.
And house. Your Grace.
And yes, who it really was.
You honor me, Lord Corlys. Princess Rhaenys.
Dragons can fly faster than ravens, and then more convincing. Send us.
The prince is right, Your Grace.
Very well. Prince Jacaerys will fly north. First to the Eyrie to see my mother's cousin, the Lady Jane Eyre, and then to Winterfell to treat with Lord Cragan Stark for the support of the North. Prince Lucerys will fly south to Storm's End and treat with Lord Boros Baratheon. We must remind these lords of
You can
the
tell that
oaths they swore.
she also just feels a lot more confident with having
And
Corlys and
the cost
Rhaenys
of
on her
breaking them.
side. There they go. Oh, oh, Luke. And Eric's his little baby dragon. All right, sir. What are you doing here? Disturbing my slumber. I'm an old man. I've been resting here. Though I can see you're a Targaryen. Ooh. Cool transition. The dragon of King Jaehaerys. Second oldest, second biggest after Vhagar. Vhagar.
I'm Prince Lucerys Velaryon.
It's pretty brave of him because he knows that means that Aemond is in there, but he's still gonna go. He's still gonna do what he promised for his mother, or try.
I will not fight you. I came as a messenger, not a warrior.
Fight would be little challenge.
Aemond.
No.
Oh God, the eye.
Put out your eye. It's payment for mine. One.
No.
Then you are craven as well as a traitor.
Not here. Give me your eye!
Oh God.
Or I will take it, boss! Not in my hall! The boy came as an envoy. I'll not have blood shed beneath my roof. Take Prince Lucerys back to his dragon.
Oh, the sapphire looks so crazy in there. Smart. It was smart. This Vhagar can't fit down there. Oh God! Because Eric's got scared. I don't want to see. I don't want to. Ah! Oh. Oh yeah, he realizes what the hell he just did. His little game. Hmm. Well, that was the season finale. House of the Dragon. Yes, I will just say to start off with that I was correct about where I guessed that this season was most likely going to end with this episode, because the death of Luke here and Rhaenyra's finding out about it is really what you could say is the definitive start of the war, where there's no turning back now, which is what that look on Aemon's face as he was flying away. He knows what he just did is beyond the catastrophe of the deaths of Luke and Eryx. It is that there's no preventing war at this point, that all of the diplomatic efforts that all of them maybe were still going for are now down the drain for good. So I'm not surprised that's where they ended it. There is a pretty significant change from the source material with this, and so I'd say that was like the one only really surprising thing here, and that is, at least according to those who tell the tale, in Fire and Blood and in the history of Westeros and everything that has discussed this previously, Aemond intended to kill Luke, intentionally used Vhagar to kill Luke and Eryx on the way out of Storm's End after the confrontation about the eye and Lord Boros telling him not to fight in his hall, that they both flew off and that Aemond had him killed on purpose. So to make it instead into a situation where he was chasing after him, basically trying to terrify him, you know, having Vhagar like snap at him or like slap at him with her feet, flying above him and taunting him about the eye, to have that be his primary intention, and to then have this happen because of the dragons themselves and their own choices, I think is an interesting decision in a couple of ways, and I'm sure there's a lot of people that are going to hate it, because there's been a lot of things that they've done throughout the course of this season that have been very much geared towards making certain characters and their choices, you could say, more gray or more complex or whatever you'd like to call it, less black and white. So Aemond, in the books, in the source material, a lot of people would say is just a straight up monster, just a psychopath, and a lot of people feel the same way about Daemon, although George doesn't necessarily. And people have also felt that Alicent is much more of a human being in this, as opposed to just a manipulative sort of power-hungry schemer along the lines of Otto. But even Otto, to some extent, I feel like has been humanized. And for me, actually, personally, I think that's a good thing, that they're doing that with all of these characters, that they're adding more depth, some actual, like, motivation, that there's not always malicious intent behind their actions, or even if it is sort of malicious, like bullying, it isn't malicious to the point of, oh, I didn't mean to kill someone. I personally think it makes the story more interesting, it makes the characters more interesting, because just having straightforward, horrible villains and heroes is not... I mean, that was never really like the Game of Thrones sort of thing, with a couple of exceptions anyway. And the characters that don't fit into those little pockets were always the ones that were more interesting to follow anyway. So I kind of like that they're doing that, but I know that a lot of people don't. So I'm sure there's going to be a lot of controversy surrounding this. But that's one of the reasons that I actually think this was maybe a good choice to make. And second, the issue about the dragons themselves. I think it ties back into an overall theme of this show and this season, and all very much goes back to things that Viserys was trying to tell Rhaenyra early on, is that the idea that they control the dragons completely is an illusion, that the dragons will listen to them to some extent, but it's more than that. There's an emotional connection between a dragon and a rider. So the dragon will not just be influenced by the things you say to them, but by the things that you are feeling, and by the things that they themselves are feeling and experiencing too, that ultimately, and going back to Daenerys, a dragon is not a slave. A dragon is a creature with its own thoughts, an intelligent creature with its own thoughts and desires and interests, and yes, it may bow to and obey the will of Targaryens at certain points in time, but you can't constantly control them. And these two in particular, you have Luke, who is on Arrax, who is just a very young, completely inexperienced dragon, who is utterly terrified by this monster that is chasing him. And Arrax doesn't know that this is a game. Arrax is in fear of his life, especially because Luke is also terrified at the same time. So it makes sense that he might freak out and shoot some fire off in a moment of panic. And it makes sense that Luke wouldn't necessarily be able to control him in that state, since he's still a young dragon rider on a young, untamed dragon. And then you've got Vhagar, who is the total opposite, who is the oldest, most powerful dragon alive still, who is a battle-hardened warrior who has killed a huge amount of people over the years, who, we'll just say, is not used to putting up with any shit. And in addition to the fact that she is probably not gonna like another tiny little dragon coming up and blowing some fire at her, she's gonna say, fuck that. She's also feeling a bit of what Aemond is feeling, which is wanting to, like, irritation at, anger and hostility towards Luke, and enjoyment of the hunt, the pursuit, even if Aemond didn't want it to end in a kill. And then, you know, Aemond has only been her rider for a short amount of time. Like, so again, it also makes sense that in certain instances, she might not be so willing to listen to him yelling, no, 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 when the emotions that he was pouring into her don't say no. And her own instinct when being attacked is to attack back, even if it's a tiny little dragon. So it does make sense, and like I said, plays very well with what Viserys was trying to say, is that it's an illusion that they completely control the dragons, and that the dragons make them gods, and that ultimately they're still people, and they have a power that maybe they should never have had. And that also ties very well back into the conversation earlier in the episode, where all the lords around the table are basically saying to Rhaenyra, hey, all this talk about soldiers, men, or whatever, this is about dragons. You have dragons, and dragons are going to decide what happens here. And Rhaenyra is very hesitant about that, partially because of the words that her father has said to her, and because of the histories that he taught her, that she knows, because of him, the destruction that dragons can do. And she's hesitant as someone who feels the weight of her father's drive to bring peace, but also beyond that, the weight of her father's concern with the prophecy and the need for there to be unity in the kingdom and a Targaryen on the throne. She doesn't want to use their dragons to just gain power if it's at the expense of all of those things that she thinks are more significant, and to kill a bunch of people. So that's one of the primary reasons that she's so hesitant and considering Alicent's offer, and that maybe it would be better for them to not seek the throne if there's a way out of it peacefully. And all the men and Daemon around her are like, no, no, no. And then you even see Daemon going off in pursuit of additional dragons that they can have on their side to make sure that they have the most dragons possible. Similar to like how Alicent was trying to keep Meleys locked up in the dragon pit so that Meleys could not go and be on Rhaenyra's side. But of course the tragedy of it all being that ultimately this instance with the dragons and the lack of controlling the dragons here is going to lead to far more usage of dragons because Rhaenyra, now her son has been killed. And Luke was like young and nervous and all like, she's obviously not going to be able to cope with this well, especially after just losing her baby, just losing her father, having issues with Daemon, and her brother usurping her throne, and then suddenly her other son is going to be killed by one of her brothers, and so you just know that that's the end of any peace hopes. The tragedy of it is that I said this before during the reaction too, and it's messed up because you want to say, no, Rhaenyra is the one that should be on the throne. She is the one Viserys wanted. They did usurp the throne. Aegon is trash and should absolutely not be in charge. But, you know, the offer that was made, if it was true and they were going to be able to keep the peace under that, the offer that was made was a good one where her children would still continue to inherit Dragonstone, which basically is always for the heir, so they would just be giving that up to her, and Driftmark, and still hold all this status, but without having to take the pressure of her becoming queen and having to live with people who would not want that because she's a woman and who would always be calling her sons bastards, and like Alicent straight up saying that your legitimate son Jacaerys and your legitimate son Lucerys, like, and having Otto say it, like, really trying to hammer home the idea that we could all just live in peace. The Targaryen family could be in peace if you go along with this. And you know that a part of Rhaenyra has to really, really want that because of how much she has feared for her children. The strain that all of this has put on her that we saw in episode 8 when she was saying with her father, like, she thought she wanted it, but she doesn't know. And adding to that, like I said, the impact of war, what it would be. So the sadness of it is that actually seems like it's well, not ideal in any way, shape, or form. You can understand why she would want to look to that. And Rhaenys saw that as well, that Rhaenyra was pondering all of these things and taking them into account, and not just power hungry and not just all about herself, but wanting to live up to her father's legacy and wanting to protect the people. And so ultimately that's the reason that Rhaenys is going to bring Corlys over to her side as well. So not just say, well, we want to try and protect the children, but we're also going to actively stand for you in whatever you decide to do. But of course, that wasn't something that was going to be easily able to happen because of Daemon, first of all. But now there's no chance of it at all because Aemond has killed Luke. The Daemon stuff is interesting this episode too, and I think a lot of people are probably also going to be pretty pissed about this, but I'm not particularly surprised. They have, you know, in some people have looked at their relationship throughout the course of the season in a rather romantic light, from my perspective, and they do love each other, but it's definitely a very tumultuous and difficult relationship. I would say more akin to Daemon and Viserys' relationship than anything else, in a lot of ways, in that they tend to hurt each other a lot, disagree with each other, push each other away when they actually need each other, and Daemon, this whole episode was honestly more of a problem than any sort of help, except for perhaps at the end when he comes in to tell her about what happened to Luke. But he starts off from the beginning, and I do like that they start him off from the beginning with him being convinced that Alicent and Otto had Viserys killed so that they could crown Aegon. They laid the groundwork for him believing this in episode 8. He already had this idea in his head, partially because, like I said, he personally couldn't accept the deterioration of his brother, and that it had happened, you know, so much when he had been away. He hadn't been there for him. So that gets him all fired up to begin with. The idea that his brother has been murdered, and of course, he needs to be avenged. And we can't just let the people that murdered my brother, the king, steal my wife's throne and just live out in peace. That absolutely cannot happen. So when Rhaenyra starts to seem to be contemplating that, especially given that it was Otto that was the messenger, and clearly he wanted to kill him so badly, then he's just enraged at her. He's furious, but he feels like he can't say anything. He's trying to stay quiet. But he's Daemon, and he can't control his emotions in any way, shape, or form. Then they also lose the baby, and they don't support each other through it. They go off and deal with their grief over both the baby and Viserys completely separately. And then she lays the true bomb on him at the end, which led to him fucking choking her like a psycho. Complete bastard behavior, which was that Viserys never told him about a prophecy that was so significant to him that it shaped his entire outlook on how he had to live his life, and has shaped Rhaenyra's life in turn. And he never told Daemon, strongly suggesting that he never ever truly wanted Daemon to be his heir, and always believed that it would ultimately end up being someone else that he would choose, and that he would pass that secret down to. And Daemon kind of... that's kind of the last hit for him, to find out that his brother, who he loved and admired, but also had such a complicated relationship with, and is currently mourning and is angry about, he feels like he's been murdered. He actually never wanted him to be his heir and kept this massive secret from him. And he just sees it as more as Rhaenyra's position is more in line with Viserys' position, which he always saw as one that allowed him to be taken advantage of and allowed him to be weak. And so they're not in a good place at that particular point in time at all. Nonetheless, he also had some interesting moments this episode when Sir Eric brought the crown, and he was taking the crown from his hand, looking down at it, and like all the emotion on his face, looking at Viserys' crown there, thinking about his brother being dead and how he was going to give that now to his wife, and having him be the one to crown her after he crowned Viserys for the last time as well was a touching thing for them to do. I also really liked that they had Jacaerys kind of stand up. They had, first of all, Rhaenys go and get them to come to help Rhaenyra, because she knew that she was not in a position, like Daemon was running off on doing his own thing. And that Jace basically stood up and was like, all right, well, someone's got to stop Daemon, and it's going to be me. And he's like trying to step into his position here on behalf of his mother, which was good. And I liked that dynamic that they had at play there. But yeah, it was a rough episode. The childbirth, the deformed child. And the description as the book is much more intense in terms of it almost sounding like the baby that Dany had that was stillbirth in Game of Thrones. So it was supposed to be all scaly and lizard-like, and that was kind of the description here as well. And they went a little bit in that direction, but not like full on, which I think is good. But they've definitely had some rough birth scenes throughout the course of this season, which I knew going in was going to be the case. But this one was... you can't even say what is the roughest, because there's two of the other ones resulted in the mothers dying, but yeah, I'm R.I.P. Luke and baby dragon Eryx. I'm so sorry. Vhagar Get your grumpy old lady self in check, please. I know you just want to go back to killing people with Visenya, but please calm it down a little. Oh, and I also just wanted to briefly comment on, because I'm sure there are people that are curious, and I saw a lot of people mentioning before the preview of this episode, the daemon with Vermithor. Okay, Vermithor being the dragon that he's singing to. He's tried to go get the dragon of the old king Jaehaerys. Vermithor is, after Vhagar, the second largest and second oldest dragon that is currently alive, has battle experience, so he very much wants to get Vermithor on their side. But I just wanted to clarify, because I saw a lot of people saying Daemon is going to claim another dragon, Daemon's going to take Vermithor. That's not what's happening. Daemon will not be leaving Caraxes for Vermithor. That's not something that Targaryens do or that will happen. What he's trying to do is trying to like lure out Vermithor and find out, you know, if he can kind of get Vermithor into a space where Vermithor is positive to him and the people around him, so that if he can find another dragon rider, that Vermithor might allow that person to ride and fight for them. Or at the very least, Vermithor might fight for them, come along with them, in kind of the way that Daenerys' other dragons would come along with her, even though she only rode Drogon. Like, he's not looking to not ride Caraxes anymore. That's not what's going on at all. So just wanted to clarify that, because I saw some confusion about that with the trailer. But yeah, it's been quite impressive first season, in my opinion. I think we can all agree, fuck Kristen Cole. I'm glad he wasn't in this episode. But yeah, it's all gonna be popping off at the beginning of next season. Aemond, you just destroyed any hope of peace going forward. But all right, I think I'm gonna wrap this up here, guys, but I definitely want to hear your thoughts as well on this episode. Like I said, I'm sure there's gonna be a lot of different opinions about some of the decisions that were made and some of the things that happened in here. So okay, thank you so much for joining me, and hopefully I'll see you next time. Bye.